country's apex court is yet to fill the vacancy left by Justice Sisi Khampempe, who retired from the Constitutional Court in 2021. So this morning we're asking, what are the major issues behind these delays? Let's bring in Zikhona Ndlebe, who is a research and advocacy officer at Judges Matters. Zikhona, thanks very much indeed for joining us to try and help us understand this issue, right? Because it seems to be quite a, when we think about it, being a justice on the Constitutional Court bench, that's sort of reaching your end goal in your career in this industry, isn't it? And yet the Constitutional Court seemingly is unable to attract judges to apply for these positions.
You're correct, Michelle. Being at the Constitutional Court and being a judge is something that many judges and lawyers aspire to become. But it's quite concerning that there's a struggle to find people who are willing to accept nominations to be interviewed for a position at the Constitutional Court. There's currently one vacancy at the Con Court, and if you consider the fact that in October 2022 there were no candidates to be interviewed for the Con Court position, it's a big concern, and it's something that should be looked closer. And we should actually question, why is this so? And I think the answer lies with the Judicial Service Commission, which conducts interviews of judges. And we've seen in the past that there's been concerns with the way that those interviews are conducted. And there's been improvement if you look at the interviews from October 2022, but still, there were no candidates for the Con Court. And that's the big concern for us as Judges Matter. Are
you saying, Zikhona, that judges actually don't want to put themselves through the interview process, which has been criticized on numerous occasions as being really just political point scoring more than anything else?
Absolutely, because the fact is there are people that are experienced and competent, but many of them do not want to put themselves forward because of the humiliation that we've witnessed in the past. If you consider the April 2021 interviews, there was a lot of humiliation and there's been a lot of criticism pointed to the JSC process. And it goes back to what we've been saying, that the JSC needs to have a set criteria that it applies, and there's a process that's been undertaken by the JSC's Rules Committee. And we are saying that that process has to be finalized, and the criteria has to be rigorously applied in the April 2023 interviews, so that people see that the JSC process is changing for the better and they can put themselves forward for positions in the various courts and specifically in the Constitutional Court. Yeah.
You touched on this just a little earlier, Zikhona, when you said, in April of 2022, the JSC actually decided to leave that seat open, right? It was a decision that surprised a number of people in the legal community because there were so many senior candidates that were put forward for that post. It also surprised a lot of people because although a number of women judges dominate the shortlist in the last 3 rounds of interviews for the Constitutional Court, only men judges ultimately have been appointed. And then, as you mentioned, in October of 2022, the JSC was unable to attract the minimum amount of candidates for that post, even those 4 minimum candidates for that post.
You're absolutely correct, Michelle. So in April 2022, there were 5 candidates that were interviewed for the 2 vacancies at the Con Court, and only 1 candidate was appointed, and the 1 vacancy was left vacant. And there were candidates that were competent and experienced in those interviews. So it was quite surprising and shocking that the JSC decided to use its discretion in that manner. And again, there were women candidates in those interviews, and they were not appointed. It was a male candidate that was appointed, and it's a big cause for concern. And the question is, will women still want to put themselves forward for vacancies, specifically the Con Court? And as we've seen in the October interviews, that did not happen, and we anticipate that the same is going to happen for the April 2023 interviews, where there will not be enough candidates to be interviewed for the 1 vacancy that exists at the Con Court currently.
Yeah. All of these issues that you've outlined to us this morning, Zikhona, what does it do for the global reputation of the Constitutional Court, which is lauded in other parts of the country? In other parts of the world, I should say. Yeah.
It's a cause for concern because the Constitutional Court is the apex court, and to have vacancies that are lasting for such a long period of time. The vacancy was open since 2021, and it is still there. So the perception that the other jurisdictions will have at our court, it's not a positive one when there are so many vacancies when there's a vacancy for such a long period of time. So it's a big problem. And even with the issue of justice, we're going to have an acting judge at the court because there's a vacancy. That's a problem. We need to have permanent judges at the Constitutional Court and in all our courts for that matter. So it's very important for the JSC to ensure that it fills the vacancies that are there expeditiously.
Yeah, absolutely. Zikhona Ndlebe, let me thank you for your time this morning, and let me apologize to our viewers for the quality of our line to Zikhona. She is with Judges Matter, which is a civil society organization that monitors the South African judiciary through research and through advocacy. Unpacking all of these important points for us this morning.